So, first off, really love this film. I was looking at past interviews, and you love the opening as well. And you were saying that it's sort of an ode to the killing of America. I've been reading up on it. I definitely want to check out the killing of America, but I'm
Yeah.
ignorant. Can you tell our listeners about that influence and about that project? Yeah, so thank you.
Let us tell you about American history of the 70s. Okay, so, uh, well, yeah,
Yeah,
go.
Killing of America. I don't think it was ever really a sensation here in America as it was back home in Oz. It really, yeah, for some reason, Japan and Australia were its biggest audience, and it absolutely exploded on VHS in the early '80s, and it was like a rite of passage as a kid to watch this thing because it was just so shocking and graphic. And it was, the Kennedy assassination, and it was serial killers in the '70s, and it was, you know, photos of autopsies and really disturbing interviews with the likes of what's his name, Kemper, who was in
Right.
a Mindhunter. So I think that had stuck with us for a long time. And when we were conceiving this film, we were thinking, we had always intended there to be this sort of, I wouldn't call it a wraparound, but that sort of prologue, the doco prologue that kind of sets everything up. And we just felt, doing it in the vein of that documentary Killing of America would just make so much sense for the material, the content, but also just the period.
Yeah. Because that was the America that we're sort of trying to portray, I guess, at the beginning of Late Night is the America from Killing of America.
Yeah.
Because we were just impressionable kids. We were like 10, 11, I don't know. We were way too young to be watching that sort of stuff. Our parents didn't. So, but to us, that was America in the 70s. So
we were terrified.
We were very scared of you guys.
Maybe I'm over. Oh yeah, maybe I'm overthinking things, but it feels like your movie was a big part of your film was shot in real time. It seems like it, that illusion of it. What was the challenge of it, or am I overthinking that there wasn't that big of a challenge at all? I don't know.
You're not overthinking it. I mean, it is almost once that segment, the prologue is over, it is real time. But we were never overly conscious of that, other than we didn't set out to make a real time movie. It just so happens that if we're going to stick to this format of the live TV show, then that's kind of how it ends up being. So, but of course, then that means there are issues, with continuity and wardrobe and, the energy of a performance from one scene to the next. All those things you've got to be very conscious of that as directors, but also for the actors, for art department, for wardrobe, so on. So, I guess, it's not something that people talk about much because I don't, it doesn't. It's because you just feel like you're watching a TV show as opposed to a real-time movie. But it's definitely there in the back of our minds. It had to be in order to make things gel.
On the back of mind to the front of the mind. Here's the thing with Dave Dastmalchian, you guys are cinephiles. You know how great of an actor he is. Is it kind of cool for you guys to see him at the forefront? And there's going to be other filmmakers, producers, creatives just realizing, oh, well, obviously he is a leading man. He is an A-lister. Can you speak to that fact? I think that's awesome. One of those. Yeah.
We were just very lucky to have him because, not only is he just a great actor, but he's a sweet guy. He loves horror films. I mean, he is, deeply involved in the scene. He writes comic books, horror comics, and he loves the world of regional horror hosts. He's a big fan of Svengoolie. He's always showing us little Svengoolie clips while we were shooting. So it was a no-brainer for us to get him on board as Jack, and he just looks the part, he sounds the part, and hopefully, like you say, more people are going to discover him through this film. And maybe this is a big pie in the sky kind of dream, but maybe this gives a chance for other sort of character actors, men and women of his ilk who maybe have the opportunity to be viewed differently.
Just not get bigger, meatier roles, like because David really reminds us of some of the great actors of the period of the film set, the 70s, mostly the 70s, 60s and 70s, where great character actors were leading men and women. And that doesn't happen quite so much now. So it'd be great to bring bring that style of filmmaking back a bit more.
Now, I'm mispronouncing his name. We're talking about character actors to leading men. So I apologize for you can correct me on this. Rhys Auteri,
Yeah.
can he be the leading man in your next project? Because he's amazing in this movie. Can you speak to that? How did you guys find him? He's just
Yeah.
natural and he's just a real anchor to your narrative.
Right. He's so good. Yeah, you're right. He's kind of like the moral compass on the set there. But yeah, it was really important that we found someone of that caliber. We auditioned a lot of people back in Australia, and yeah, no one quite. I mean, there are a lot of good actors and funny people as well, but no one was quite right. And I think with Rhys, now Rhys has done almost no film or TV prior to this, but he has done a lot of improv. So he's a member of this Melbourne improv group. So I think we saw a picture of him in a program for the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and he just stood out. It's like he's got a bit of what's his name?
Dennis France. No?
Dennis France.
Yeah.
Or
Fritz Hamilton.
Hank in Larry Sand. There was something about him. I just felt he seems to have the right quality.
Yeah.
So we, without having seen any of his work, because there's none available, you won't find anything online. We tracked him down, and we had some mutual friends in the sort of the theatre world, and he came in, or he did his own self-tape, and it was like, okay, this guy is
something.
worth pursuing. Yeah. And then we got him in. We met him in the flesh and did another audition, and
he was like totally honest when he came. He's like, guys, this is the first audition I've ever done.
And he never expected to get the part. And when he came in, he had this sort of bouffant hair, and he went away, and we said, you got the part. He said, oh, by the way, I just had my hair cut as well. He never thought he'd get the role. Like, this guy who's never been in front of a film camera before. But we loved him. And he was such a sweet, humble individual, but hilarious. His timing, his ad libs,
and his hair grew out in time for the shoot.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys have had to answer this question time and time again, but the idea about it's a cliche, but there's something to be said about in-camera effects, practical effects, as opposed to the beauty of CGI, big budget CGI. I was terrified when that practical effects took place. Can you just talk about that advantage of just using that?
Yeah. Like, I think, I saw an interview with David recently where he talked about how it helps his performance. And I think you get that from a lot of actors. It's like, if you can see it in front of you and not just see it, smell it, like the corn syrup, whatever that blood is, but you get something that's a little bit off-putting. It just helps make everything that much more visceral on set for the actors. And we know what we're getting in camera. It's much more tangible and much more effective. And I think audiences, like you're saying, generally they can tell the difference. They know when it's in the room and when it's just something that's being plonked on months later. So if you can do it, why not? It's so much more effective.
Yeah, and we have a big team working for us. Russell Sharp, who kind of designed everything and was there on set, and ripping latex live on camera. Won't give too much away, but we're very, very lucky with our crew.
Final question. We have 2 movie recommendations after this interview. Obviously, your film, The Killing of America. Can each of you name one of your all-time favorite movies, and what is it about this film that makes it resonant for you and worth a recommendation for our listeners?
You got one there?
Well,
I always go back to Raiders of the Lost Ark as my favorite film of all time. I think it'll probably stay number 1 forever. And I think about that film and I think about ours, and I think there are scenes
that we've ripped off into wholesale.
Particularly the climax. I think,
actually,
yeah. So that film never goes away.
Yeah.
I think, when we're writing, it's always just
the
way that film was constructed, just the smartness of the dialogue and
the structure and the shape of the story, the screenplay. We do.
It never goes away.
We're steeped in that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a pick, or do you agree with Raiders?
I'll go with that. But look, I mean, in terms of it being,
you should pick a horror film.
Oh God. I mean, we love all that. I mean, again, you want to make it relevant to the film we've just made, I think. So, 70s stuff like, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know that it's been popped as far as, you know,
Yeah.
horror movies go. We love everything from that era. But, you know, even non-horror stuff like, I don't know, Network, King of Comedy, like their films we watched a number of times sort of through the development of Late Night with the Devil. And they still hold up and have something to say about the media landscape today as much as they did back then.
After Hours is another one I think we always find ourselves referring to whenever we're writing.
Have you seen After Hours?
The
Yeah.
Scorsese film.
Yeah.
Very, Scorsese mid-80s. Yeah, I really love that.
Wow, you know,
Yeah.
that's like when you
Just,
talk
I mean,
about films you've watched you know, more than half a dozen times, like that's up there. Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. But
Then
I
you
think
got-
there's a mood and a sense of humor in that film that, you know.
And that has a kind of a real-time energy to it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Which we try to evoke.
Thank you guys so much for your time. And very quickly, when you guys are at creative loggerheads, is there an unlock as far as just working together when there is that loggerhead kind of situation?
There's always going to be moments where we disagree, but Colin's older and he usually
That's not true. That's not true.
That's good. That
No,
works.
it's I try to pull that sometimes, but no. It's at the end of the day, it's normally who feels the most strongly about something. If someone is prepared to put up a real fight for it, it's like, okay, let's do it. Let's try it.
That's true.
And when it falls flat on its face, it's the other guy says, "See, I told you so." And that's as long as there's time to correct the mistake.
Yeah.
But no, we generally see eye to eye. Let's say 80-90% of the time. But and when we don't, it's interesting. It just becomes a point of discussion.
Right. Thank you guys so much for your time. Really love the film.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you so
man.
much.
Cheers.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Cheers.